We have been talking about HTTP servers throughout this series. So now let's kind of diverge a bit and talk about WebSockets. So in HTTP, it is a request response protocol. The client sends a request, the server sends back a response, and that's it. It's just a one-to-one type thing. There's no persistent connection so that the client can keep sending messages or the server can keep sending messages. It's not a full duplex communication channel. To have something like that, you need to create what is something called a WebSocket. And a WebSocket is a open connection from the client to the server that's full duplex. So the client can send data to the server whenever it wants, and then the server can send data back to the client whenever it wants. And that's a lot more efficient because you're not constantly creating these HTTP requests. But you lose the request response protocol and you have to build that on top of it. But for now, you can just think of WebSocket as this pipe between the client and a server, and both sides can send data. So Vert.x, the router here, comes built in with the ability to handle WebSockets. So let's look at how we can build a WebSocket. So a WebSocket starts out with a request. So let's say /chat. And in this example, I'm going to make like a small chat application using WebSockets. So I do a handler. So very similar to how everything's been up till now. This is just a regular GET request, and then I have a handler. And how WebSockets work under the hood is the client makes a request and then it sends an upgrade header to the server that tells it that, hey, I want to upgrade to a WebSocket request. So here we can just use the routing context and convert the request to a WebSocket like this. So it.request to WebSocket. So we're upgrading the HTTP request to a WebSocket. And then here I can say on success. So if I am in this function, then I know that the WebSocket has been upgraded and a connection has been made appropriately. So this is kind of my connection piece, that this is where the connection has been made. So I can say print line WebSocket connected and socket. And I can actually get the ID of this like this. So now my WebSocket is connected. It is as simple as that. You take the request, you upgrade it to a WebSocket, and then because this returns a future, I need to do an on success socket, and now I have access to the socket and WebSocket connected. So let's just start with this for now and see how this would work from the client side. So to connect to this server, you can use any WebSocket client you want. You can use the JavaScript client, whatever, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to use the Go command line client that's here, which is called WS. And you can access this on my GitHub. It's called WS on my personal GitHub. And if you go into the releases folder, you'll see compiled binaries for every platform, Linux, Windows, Darwin. So you can just download it and then do like /ws Linux, whatever. And you can then just connect to any WebSocket server like this, WS, So I have mine installed over here. So I'm going to say go bin WS. For you, it might just be /ws or whatever the name of the downloaded binary is. And then you have to give it like the endpoint to connect to. And here you can see it's not HTTP, it's WS, which means WebSocket. So it's localhost 9000 /chat. And if I do this, you can see that I'm connected. My terminal is on hello, right? So greater than sign means I'm sending it, and then less than sign means that I'm receiving it from the server. And if I come here, you can see that the WebSocket has been connected, and I get this kind of like ID for this. Okay, that's all great. Now, how do I do something when a message is received from the client to the server? So right now it just says connected, but I want to do some logic when a message is received by the server. So for that, I have to attach a handler on this socket. So I will say socket dot text message handler, and that's it. Now, anytime a message comes from the client to the server, this lambda will be triggered, and message, and this message will be the actual text that the client has sent. So I'm just going to say received $message. So now if I run this, and when I send a message again from the terminal client, we should see this piece of code get triggered, which for now just says received, and then basically echoes the message that was received. So go back here, connect again, I'm connected. Now if I come back here, WebSocket connected, and then I have the ID. Now I'll say hello from Vert.x. Now if I come here, you can see received hello from Vert.x, because this text message handler has been kind of attached so that whenever a message comes in, we triggered this piece of logic. Okay, so now let's kind of go into actually creating a chat app. So if we think about a chat application, how does that kind of work? Well, once you've connected to this chat application, you have a list of users that are connected to this place. So, well, first we'll need to have a data structure that can hold all these sockets so that I have a list of everybody that's connected to me. And then when I get a message from any of these sockets, I want to send that message, or I want to forward that message to everybody else who's also connected except me, right? So those are basically the two parts of a chat app. When you connect to the chat app, I'm going to hold your socket connection in a list, and then when I receive a message from any of those sockets, I'll send that message, or I'll forward that message to everybody else who's connected. Okay, so let's start by first creating a list of everybody who's connected. So I'll do that by creating a mutable set of server WebSocket. So this will be my list of everybody who's connected to my chat app, and the server WebSocket is this type. So this is what you get when you do a to WebSocket. So I can actually add this socket to my connected users. So now when a WebSocket is connected, I'm going to connected users.add the socket. So every time a new socket is connected, I'm just going to add it. Okay. And then when I get a message from this socket, I'm going to go connected users dot filter not, and this just, wait, let me just type it out and then I'll explain what this is. Okay, so first we will add the socket to this connected users list, and then we're attaching a text message handler so that whenever a message comes in, we go through each connected user, we get rid of ourselves, so we're not sending this message that we send back to us, and then for everybody else, we call this function called write text message, which is something that's actually on the socket. So if we do socket.write, you have these write text message. So when you say hello from server, something like that. So when you call write text message on this socket, it will send the data from the server back to the client. So let me do this. Now I'm going to compile this code, and then we'll try to connect to this chat app from two different terminals and see if the chat is working. So first, when I connect, you can see immediately I get a hello from the server message. And this is coming from this line when I say write text message on the socket. And then it adds my connected socket to this connected users. And and it attaches a handler such that whenever I send a message, it will go through each connected user and then forward that message to them. So right now, I'm the only person in this room. So if I say hello, nothing actually happens. However, if I create a new terminal and then I do the same thing, I connect. So again, I get hello from server. So now this is another user that's connected to this chat app. And then I say hello from user 2. You can see in my first screen, I get hello from user 2 because it takes this message on the server side. It takes this message, goes through everybody that's connected, removes yourself or the person sending the message. So each socket has this text handler ID that you can kind of use to identify the message or the socket or the connection. So I'll get rid of myself, and then for each of those, I'll send the message to them. So when I send hello from user 2, it goes there, it removes this user, and then sends it to everybody, which is only this user. So if I send a message from here, hi, I got your message. So I send a message here, and immediately I get the message on this side. So this is how you can create a basic sort of WebSocket chat application using Vert.x. Create a handler, upgrade the request to a WebSocket, and then attach the socket to, and then attach text message handler to the socket so you can trigger logic when a message comes in, and then keep track of all the users that are connected. Now, something that we didn't kind of touch was what happens when I do this. Now that I've disconnected from the socket, I need to add some logic here so that I actually remove the socket from disconnected users. Otherwise, this list will just keep growing indefinitely, even if the socket has been disconnected. And for that, I can use a function called close handler. And what a close handler does is when this socket closes, it will trigger this piece of code. So now I can say connected users dot remove it dot socket dot text handler ID, or I guess socket, right? So when this socket is closed, it will trigger this piece of function, and then I can kind of just delete this socket out from the connected users so that this list only has everybody who's connected. So we add people here when they connect, we remove people here when they disconnect, and then when they send messages, this is the piece of logic that's triggered. Go through everybody who's connected, remove ourselves, and then write them a text message, which is the message that was received. So basically in like 10-15 lines of code, you can kind of have this terminal style WebSocket chat application created using Vert.x.